does something instigate you and then you chew on it and then this comes out or the hats come out? Or sometimes is it just self-generated, or does something usually spark you, or like how does that?
Something usually sparks me. Like this was all about the statues, the Confederate statues they're taking down. And my feelings about being raised in the Midwest. So I got to thinking, well, how could you get a point across by leaving the statue? Let's go on indicator.
Yes.
I wish they'd just take a sander to it and sand all the words off and leave the obelisk.
But it was in there and starting to grow and started.
Yeah.
Is it really just anything that's kind of injustice or not?
It is.
Yeah.
It's about injustice. It's about human rights issues.
What makes you say, I'm going to voice, versus just on the phone to my friends or at parties over drinks and then it goes away?
Mm-hmm.
What makes you go, I need to put this thing in the world? I need to put this thing out there.
It's because something triggered it in me. And I'm not a religious person at all, but I use it all the time. Because...
Well, it's in you. You grew up around it.
Yeah, it's in there.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus was a nice guy.
Yeah.
That's what we were taught. And we should love our neighbor. And the church was about love. It wasn't about hate.
Or separation or better than.
Except when the older I got, the more I realized Mom and Dad were raised in this little town of 200 people, down to about 70. And they had lots of prejudices because there probably wasn't a black person for 75 miles. It was a big deal when a Catholic family moved to town. Growing up, we were just told Mother would get mad at us. Dad, of course, was at work. If we didn't open a door for an older person, going to do this.
And this is 18? 18-ish? Did you know you were gay yet?
I didn't know what gay was.
Because all these things...
I knew it was different. Terry and I talked about it years later. Here's these two kids.
And Terry's your twin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Terry and I talked about it years later about... We just knew we were different. We didn't know what it was because, and talk about it on TV. Mom and Dad knew what it was because they worried about us.
Oh, they knew.
Mothers always know. I was going to be a fashion designer. Because I did. They thought I played with paper dolls, but I was taking my sister's paper dolls and drawing dresses for them. So I went to JUCO, that's JUCO, and took some interior design classes, not interior design, clothing design classes. I was going to college, and that was the Vietnam War was on, you got to remember that. Right. So then I took a painting class, drawing a painting class. I thought, no one ever told me about this. And I was running track in college.
So
I dated this one girl who's now, like Mom called me up one time, Becky's a lesbian. She's a lesbian now. Okay, so I go to college. I took a drawing and painting class. And I thought, wow, this is great. And I still wasn't out, even though I was propositioned a couple of times. I didn't even know it. So dense. And sex was bad anyway, according to my mother. So I did Mom a painting. I don't know if I've ever told any critic or anybody this. For Mother's Day, of a crucifixion, because she was so religious. To me, I was killing Jesus off. I was tired of him.
This is not what I want to...
It's hanging in the church at home now. Since they died, they left it to the church. It's a crucifixion was the sky opening up and sun coming down. I'd had half a semester of figure drawing. It's awful. But she loved it because it was what it was. And her kid made it. Here I am, this hick kid, and I literally was one of the worst in the class. And I was not going to end the class that way. So.
The painting class?
Uh-huh.
What made you think you were the worst?
Oh, I knew.
just from looking at the.
Yeah. Oh, there was one kid who was amazing. And a little girl that was really good, but she's just too saccharine. But boy, could she paint. And I don't know. I did 2 paintings. I don't even know if I have photographs of them. My final painting was this guy with his hand up like this, with this very white, well, with little bits of color background, surrounded, and he's in these rocks. And I think back on that painting, I'm thinking, I was just trying to hold things back. And then I did the crucifixion. And I knew I did it. And the painting teacher, junior college painting isn't great. So then I was offered a scholarship
For?
Basketball, religious school. And I thought, no, I can't do that. They won't let me do what I want. I went to the art department. It was like Mickey Mouse. And I thought, heck, I can't do this. So I fell in love, didn't know it, with John Cornelson, who was my track buddy. He ran hurdles too, and he played on the football team. And he didn't have any brothers and sisters, so I was almost his brother. His family was real nice. I'd go visit them. They lived out in the country outside of Hutchinson, Kansas, where the college was. And he was going to Wichita State, and he said, why don't you come with me and be my roommate? I had feelings for him, but I didn't know what that was. Anyway, I came out while I was living with him, and that caused lots of trouble. He figured it out. I'll put it that way. But he didn't run away. And he had told me one time, he wondered if he was gay. This is when I found out what it meant. If he wonders, it's natural to be curious.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of helped me blow it off. And between my sophomore and junior year at Wichita State, where I went, and I ran track for a while. I just couldn't put up with the time crunch because I was working 40 hours a week too. And I couldn't get my art done. So I came out, my junior year with a guy I was working with at the restaurant. Yeah, I was like a duck to water. I thought, this is it. This is what's been my problem. I was worried about this, and this is just way fun. I just don't care what other people think. I did decide consciously never to tell my parents because I knew if I got angry with them, that's why I would do it.
Tell me about the relationship of you becoming an artist and you becoming you.
That's an interesting question because you use the word artist. I didn't feel like an artist until I was 30.
And why
I
that?
liked making things. I was teaching art in high school. And I was still working some stuff at home in my house, in my apartment in Wichita and in Houston when I moved there. And I liked the work, but it wasn't much of it. And when you're only around, thank God I taught high school, not junior high or grade school, because they talk like that. Initially, I did some things about how women are treated as objects, kind of tits and ass concept.
Right.
Yeah, women's rights are something that interests me a lot because it's so unfair. Why make art? I think when people tell me they wish they could draw, that they wish they could take a thought in their head and make it visible. I like to make things up. It took me years to draw. Every figure I drew, I remember I was doing I taught high school art in Houston, then I moved to El Paso. And that's when I got serious. I was living with a doctor who was in the military there.
Roommate or partner?
Partner.
Right.
It was either move where he was or break it off. Because I'd met him in Dallas before he went in the military. And that's how I ended up in Atlanta, because of John. And anyway, so he moved to El Paso, and I said, okay, I'll move out there because I loved him and I wanted to be in a relationship. And I thought, well, he's one of the smartest, nicest guys I've ever met. And I signed up at the UTEP, University of Texas at El Paso. And they put me to work teaching drawing as a fellowship. I always thought an artist, that was a person who could, all those books up there about artists, and they grab a theme and they go with it. I couldn't get past about 6 pieces on a theme, 10 maybe.
Because you were done with the thought, or you just...
I did it. I've always been that way. I don't mind getting rid of anything because I can always make more.
Right.
And so I'm not sentimental about my work. When you asked me about the past in the kitchen, I thought, nah. I don't. It's fun that I did all that, and I'm quite surprised when I look at it. Yeah, that's right. I hated some of that work in El Paso. Not all of it, for sure. But when I got to Jackson, Mississippi, where John moved to teach pediatric anesthesiology at the hospital, I had, after going to Wichita and after living in Houston, after being in graduate school at UTEP, I had a lot of work, I thought.
And you just kept making it with no end in mind, or did you have an end?
Oh,
you just create. Yeah.
Sometimes. And then, no, I don't. I have an end in mind. Then I interviewed for the art museum job because it was being built and going to open in like 2 or 3 months. So I got a job there, and that's what I wanted. It was about the only job in town that's going to be worth anything.
Once you took that painting class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. That was it. I was driven after that to be a good painter. And that's why I take on technical things like that one painting.
The figures and the figure.
So I got to Mississippi. I bought a package of 100 sheets of good paper. I put all my crayons in one bag, all my colored pencils in another bag, all my paints in a grocery bag, so on and so forth. And I would look at the paper, and I was working on a series where the object, I love this work. I'll get to the point I sold almost all of it. It's really beautiful. I decided I wasn't going to draw the object, which was going to be a square with an X. Those are the 2 things I was interested in, which go back to childhood too. But I draw around them and make them appear.
Oh, to play with the negative space.
Yeah, so I draw the negative space in the white box.
So the triangles to make an X.
And then I deconstructed the X and deconstructed the square and blah, blah, blah. I did 100 drawings. I've started it. And so when I moved here, that's what I was doing. I learned a lot about color. Because I'd say, okay, I'm going to do a drawing with 5 colors. Every you can get one. Came out white, I started. So I would not let myself pick colors. And I learned a lot by being deprived. It's like a teaching assignment for me. But then I felt better. That's why I felt like an artist. I had a teacher tell me I dropped his class the same day I signed up for it, that if you paint with black and white, it's a drawing. And if you draw with colored pencils on paper, it's a painting. And he gave me these 100 rules he had written down. I went and dropped his class like that. Because no one's going to tell me it's shit like that.
Is there a common thread of like, they just can't be bound by the normal suppressions that I think sometimes unknowingly society puts on people to not create or to not break out, or, you know.
And self-censorship becomes part of that.
Because it's now.
Art is about learning who you are, if you're doing it right, I think. It's not about teaching other people. They don't get the exact same thing I do. We were raised Catholic in Florida, and I was raised in a farm town in Kansas. And it's just weird that artists think or viewers think they're supposed to get the same thing. You get what you get.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you like something by an artist, you don't like something else by the same artist. We don't like everything. It's just, how do we, as viewers, grasp imagery? Why are there art museums?
Why do you think there are?
I think we have to have them because we're human. Think of the cave paintings. I love this lecture I used to give to parents. I'd start with the cave paintings. I'd say, okay, can anyone tell me what the world's oldest profession is? They giggle. I said, no, it's artist. We can prove it. My balance, since I have Parkinson's, is awful. Yeah, I was diagnosed with it. I'd been shaking for a long time, and I changed doctors. So I asked around. Dr. Factor at Emory's, great. Factor told me about this brain surgery. He said, no, it doesn't always work, and it takes about 5-6 months to get approval to do it. Psych tests, motor skills, all that stuff. So I went through all that, and I finally got approval about the time I was retiring. I had Hank shave my head the night before because I didn't want to just shave where they were going to operate. God, it looks stupid. So he shaved it, but then they had, I don't know when they razored it, but they did. And cut the skin back, drilled 2 holes, size of quarters, and they had, of course, done all these x-rays, all those things. They knew where they were headed with the wires, hopefully. But they hit it the first time and told Hank. Then they wake you up.
And then what?
Count backwards by 7s from 101. I never worried a day about it. It's the weirdest thing. It wasn't that I was so, oh, this will be good, but I wasn't like crazy elated, but it did work out. And I've seen people it didn't. And so, yeah, I drew. Rabbits are so much fun to draw.
Mm-hmm.
So I dipped it, I hung some paper on the wall where I draw. I dipped the stick in ink, and I'd hang the picture next to it, and I'd just start drawing.
With the stick? From
because
the backyard?
The broken end of a stick is so unpredictable.
Right.
That it gives you lines you don't even want or try to get. You could never duplicate it again.
Right.
And so it's really about the line. The rabbit's an excuse to make a line.
Got it.
To draw.
Well, rabbits are kind of fun, and there's levity to a rabbit, and you can't be serious with those ears.
I did one. It was so funny. It was an angry rabbit. Called Angry Rabbit. And it sold immediately. But then I thought, okay, well now, and here's my skill assignment I give myself. How many rabbits can I put on a piece of paper and not fuck it up? Because it's like, the more people you put in a portrait, the harder it is. Because if you mess one up, no matter how good the others are, it's messed up.
Yep.
So how many rabbits? So I got 6. I got a big sheet of paper out. I drew 6 of them. It turned out great. Went to a show and.
So when you get, inspired by something, like whether it's the AIDS or this or whatever it is, how do you know when you're done with the topic or it's out of you or?
Tired of it. And that's the thing I used to worry about, that I couldn't continue a theme. But these fall under, some things fall in bigger categories, like the Christian
Religion.
revenge theory.
So a lot of things fall as subcategories and could be sublines of work.
Yeah. The day they shot all those kids in the school in Florida, it happened late afternoon. We were at dinner. A woman Hank used to work with, and her husband came up. We didn't know anything about it. He goes, "Time for thoughts and prayers. A bunch of kids were killed." So that's when I thought, well, how do you draw that? You can't just say, don't kill children. That's not nice.